Welcome to Wine Wanderings. Today we have Ross Bryant with us, who is the No. 3 Gin brand ambassador. Welcome, Ross. As I mentioned, I'm writing about the Renaissance of gin.
Great, yeah, thank you for having me. Lovely to be a part of this.
Good. Well, I understand that you've dedicated your livelihood to bar and restaurant trade since you were 16. You've worked in fine dining, in triple-rosette restaurants, mixing and inventing drinks at some of Edinburgh's hottest cocktail spots. Then you went to open your own speakeasy style bar called Bryant and Mack Private Detectives. Very cool name for that bar. And you earned a great reputation for cocktails. So now your next project is working with No. 3 Gin as the brand ambassador. So tell me a little bit about No. 3 Gin, your style of gin, the botanical ingredients used to make it. Why is this gin so special?
Yeah, of course. It's a question I'm asked a lot these days. One of the biggest questions I think I'm asked actually is why are you called No. 3 Gin? Why wouldn't you want to be called No. 1? And really that story starts in all the way back to 1698, so a long time ago now, because we're owned by a company called Berry Bros and Rudd, who are situated in the centre of London in an area called St James's, which is a very prestigious part of London. So we're just across the road from St James's Palace and very close to Buckingham Palace. So a lovely area in London. And this is where we started shop, originally as a tea and coffee merchant, before moving into wine and spirits. And Berry Bros and Rudd is one of, if not the oldest, wine and spirit merchants in the world. So lots of rich history and heritage for wine and spirits, which is lovely. And the reason we're called No. 3 Gin is because we're situated at No. 3 St James's Street. So we're named after a brand home, which I think is very interesting. And fast forward to 2008, our chairman at the time, Simon Berry, decided to challenge our spirits team to create a world's best gin. Now, this is before the gin boom that we're experiencing now. The gin market at the time was a lot smaller, but he could see that this gin boom was on the horizon. So we spent 2 years creating this wonderful liquid that we know and love today. We definitely wanted to take our time to craft this. After all, we've got this huge challenge to create a world's best gin. So it's not something we deemed we could do overnight. So we needed our experts. We needed to partner with the correct people. So we partnered with a distillery in Schiedam in Holland called Royal Distillers for a few key reasons. Largely, we find that Schiedam and Holland as a whole are very much the birthplace of gin and juniper-based spirits. I'm sure you'll delve into this in your article. They're also a family-owned company, much like us, so they follow a very similar ethos, which is very, very important for us. When we partner with anyone, they need to be on the same kind of wavelength as us. And also they've been distilling for over 3 centuries. So they know this craft inside out, and who better to partner with than someone that has been doing this for over 300 years. And next, we needed a master distiller to create this recipe for us. So we partnered with a gentleman called Dr. David Clutter. He's the only person in the world that holds a PhD in gin. So he knows this inside out. He knows this probably better than anyone else in the world. So definitely the right person to help us create this liquid. And what he did, along with a panel of experts, other master distillers and bartenders, spirits writers, who helped us shoot this liquid, he created this very classic London dry style gin. So No. 3 is a London dry style gin, just made up of 6 botanicals, which are very considered. They're all there for a reason. They all play their part. And this gin is very much a sum of its parts. You'll notice all of the ingredients on the nose and on the palate. Speaking of ingredients, our botanicals are broken down into 3 flavor profiles. So first and foremost, we have juniper. I'm sure we all know that every gin must contain juniper. A London dry gin must contain juniper as the dominant flavor kind of profile, essentially. And we source our juniper berries from Italy. We deem these to be the best possible quality juniper berries that we can lay our hands on, which again is very important for us. They lend that lovely piney, fragrant, kind of fresh aromatic notes that we get in No. 3. Next, we have our citrus botanicals. So we have pink grapefruit and we have sweet orange from Seville. Now these lend a lovely, fresh aromatic notes as well that pair very nicely with our juniper. And next we have our spice botanicals. So we've got green cardamom pods, which are lovely and aromatic and full of Eastern promise. Next we have coriander seeds, which are a little earthier in terms of a spice, but also lend a kind of warming citrusy note as well, which again pairs very nicely with our botanicals. And lastly, angelica root, which not so much a flavor profile per se, but it helps to bind all of these ingredients together. It helps with texture, and also on the palate, if you try that neat, or if you drink it in something like a martini, for example, it lends a lovely drying quality at the back of the palate, which is really important. So very considered recipe, just 6 ingredients. They're all there for good reason. They all partner up together very nicely. And then all of this lovely liquid is made on a very unique still, which is over 100 years old. It's a copper pot still, and it's used exclusively for number 3 gin. So nothing else is distilled on this. It's very small in capacity, just 3,100 litres. And it's encased in brick, which is very unique as well. So that largely acts as an insulating jacket, which is very important for keeping the temperature very constant in the still. And that definitely helps with that end product. So yeah, a lot of rich history around this gin, and a wonderful liquid nonetheless. And I must say, we had this challenge to create a world's best gin, and I can very happily say that we've been awarded world's best a total of 4 times, which is more than any other gin in the world. So huge accolade for us. And yeah, a lovely thing to be able to say.
Congratulations on that. And thank you for the history. And I'd love to see a picture of that still. It sounds special. So what's your favorite cocktail for your gin?
I have many. One of my favorite cocktails, which I am enjoying just now actually, is a dry martini. I personally like it quite dry. I think it's a lovely palate cleanser before a meal. I must stress I'm in the UK at the moment, so it's 5 p.m. more or less. So it's a safe time to be drinking a martini. On top of that, it's very much time and place. A current favorite of mine is a cocktail called a Hanky Panky, which is gin, sweet vermouth, and a little bit of Fernet Branca. So it's a little more aromatic, slightly bitter, and a little sweet as well.
Wonderful. Yeah, I think that dry martini is very palate cleansing and refreshing. So do you have a favorite quote about gin in general?
Yes, I don't think about gin directly, but harking back to the Hanky Panky, actually, I really enjoy that story. And this all stems from the American bar at the Savoy in London back in the early kind of 1900s. A lovely woman called Ada Coleman, who was a bartender and a bar manager there for quite some time. She created this cocktail for a customer. So this gentleman would come in on a regular basis after a long day at work, quite stressed, and he asked her to create this cocktail for him that just really had a punch to it, really had a good kick to it. So she spent a few days, maybe a couple of weeks, perfecting this cocktail, and eventually placed it down in front of him. He took one sip, and apparently leapt out of his seat and shouted, "By Jove, that's the real Hanky Panky." And thus the cocktail has its name, which I think is a lovely story. I think it's a great way to name a cocktail.
There are so many good stories from the American bar at the Savoy, I have to say.
Yeah.
It's a great place. Thank you for that. So where can we find your gin?
So you'll have to excuse me. I haven't had a chance to visit yourselves in America since I started in this role just over a year ago, for obvious reasons, I hope. But what you can do is on our website, there is we've got a dedicated section of the website which will help you locate the gin in America. So our website is number3gin.co.uk. That's NO3 gin.co.uk. So that will help you locate it, and hopefully you can grab a bottle from Martin.
I'm going to go do that right now. So thank you. Well, thank you, Ross, for joining us on Wine Wanderings. We really appreciate this addition to the update of the Renaissance of Gin. You have a good evening.
Well, yeah, thank you very much for having me. It's been a delight. Thank you.